Today we are going to talk about Chickering's 7 vectors of student development. Some brief history about Chickering. Chickering's theory was detailed in his 1969 book, Education and Identity. He based the research he conducted on sophomore and senior students at Goddard University. The theory was revised in 1993 by Arthur Chickering and Lisa Reiser to incorporate new information they found. It's comprised of 7 vectors and the aspects of emotional, interpersonal, ethical, and intellectual development. To help you better understand the vectors, we've created this graphic representation of Chickering's 7 vectors. You might notice that the graphic representation looks like Legos, and that's for intentionality. So each one of the vectors build upon each other much like Legos do. The different vectors represented by different colors, and the vectors are not always set in a linear fashion. So they can be at different points of identity and development, which you will see on the next slide. It's important to note that the vectors are malleable. So students can be in different points in the vector at different time and not on a specific timeline. All the vectors present to make up a full identity development of the student. You might be wondering, what are the 7 vectors of student development by Arthur Chickering? And now we're going to dive a little bit into the vectors. So we have developing competence, managing emotions, moving through autonomy towards interdependence, developing mature relationships, establishing identity, developing purpose, and developing integrity. In the following slides, we will discuss each vector in detail. The first vector is developing competence. You can think of this vector like the tines of a pitchfork. So the 3 tines would be intellectual competence, physical and manual competence, and interpersonal competence. Arthur Chickering says that you need all 3 of them to work together, and a fully successful student in this vector will be able to use the handle of the pitchfork to use all of these at one time. The second vector is managing emotions. So this is the ability to recognize and accept emotions, both in yourself and in other humans, appropriately express and control one's own emotions, and learn to act on feeling in an appropriate manner. So students need to go through all of these tasks in order to complete this vector. Vector 3, moving through autonomy towards interdependence. So this is increased emotional independence, which builds on the previous vector. It's the freedom from continual and pressing needs for reassurance, affection, or approval from others. So this is more about making meaning in your own life and feeling in control of that. It is self-direction, problem-solving, ability, and mobility, and you accept the importance of interdependence in this vector. So vector 4 is developing mature interpersonal relationships. So this includes tolerance and appreciation of differences and people's uniqueness, and it houses the capacity for healthy relationships, both in partnerships and close friendships. So we have vector 5, establishing identity, and this focuses on comfortability with gender, ethnic background, sexual orientation, body, and appearance. So this is really about the individual's own perception of their own self, their own body, and their own identity. Vector 6 is about developing purpose. So in this vector, students develop clear vocational goals. They know what they want to do post-graduation potentially, or they at least have some kind of plan moving forward. And they also make meaningful commitments to activities and personal interests. So they do things because they want to do them, not because they think that they have to do them. The last vector is developing integrity, and so this is has three parts to it, much like the first vector. So this vector, we have humanizing values, personalizing values, and developing congruence. So some applications of the theory. This theory helps you better understand where students are when advising them. It assists professionals when hiring students for jobs, so we can ask them questions geared towards which vector they're in without necessarily talking about the 7 vectors. We understand where students' concerns come from. This is really important. We are better able to add empathy to our jobs towards our students because we better understand where they're coming from and where they are. And we create better scholar practitioners within the field. So we just wanted to end on some critiques of the theory. The original theory was based on research conducted solely on white male students. The revision incorporated women's development as well as the development of African American, Hispanic, or Latino students. The definition of the vectors are general and hard to measure, so it can be hard to say where a student is because there's not concrete evidence that supports where the student may be. And it also fails to address how students handle barriers and developments within the vectors. So we don't know how students overcome obstacles, we just know where they move through the vectors. Thank you for listening. We hope that this was an informative PowerPoint presentation. Thank you.